The galactic nexus hung suspended in the void between star systems, a massive construct of interlocking rings and crystalline structures that defied traditional engineering. Its central chamber, the Hall of Unified Governance, had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Today, it bore witness to what might be the final chapter of galactic resistance. Holographic displays covered every surface, each one a window into ongoing planetary destructions. Miniature worlds flickered and died, reduced to cosmic dust by the inexorable advance of the Black Armada. The hall's atmosphere was thick with despair, a tangible weight that seemed to press down on the assembled delegates from across the known universe. Akira Nakamura sat perfectly still, her posture betraying none of the tension that consumed the room. At 37, she was the youngest member of the human delegation, but her eyes held a depth that spoke of experiences far beyond her years. To her left, Commander Elena Rodriguez adjusted her uniform, the fabric subtly shifting with adaptive nanoweave technology, a small reminder of humanity's potential for innovation. The third human present was Dr. Wei Chang, a veteran cynoarchaeologist whose weathered face told stories of decades spent exploring the remnants of fallen civilizations. He watched the holographic displays with a calculated detachment, his fingers occasionally tracing patterns on a quantum data pad that seemed to pulse with barely contained energy. "The Coraxian defense line has fallen," announced Zarak, the crystalline representative of the Nexus Coordination Council. His translucent body flickered with waves of bioluminescent color, a visual representation of his species' emotional state. "That was our final defensive position in the Outer Rim." A collective groan swept through the chamber. The Coraxians had been legendary warriors, their defensive technologies considered the most advanced in the known galaxy. Their fall meant that no single civilization now stood between the Black Armada and total galactic conquest. Akira leaned forward slightly, her quantum data pad displaying a complex series of algorithms that seemed to dance beneath her fingertips. Commander Rodriguez glanced at her, a subtle understanding passing between them. They were the silent observers, the human delegation that most believed was utterly irrelevant to the current crisis. The Hall of Unified Governance was a marvel of interstellar architecture. Constructed from materials that could withstand the pressures of multiple dimensional states, it had served as the primary diplomatic center for over 10,000 years. Its central chamber could accommodate representatives from hundreds of different species, each with their unique environmental and physiological requirements. Today, however, the vast space felt suffocating. Delegates from silicon-based life forms sat uncomfortably close to methane-breathing entities. Energy-based consciousness shared proximity with corporeal beings. The usual diplomatic tensions have been replaced by a unified sense of impending doom. "We have approximately 3 standard galactic cycles before the Black Armada reaches the core worlds," announced Protox, the elder representative of the Quantum Collective. His holographic form shimmered with ancient wisdom and profound resignation. "Our combined fleets cannot mount an effective resistance. Every strategic projection shows the same outcome: complete annihilation." Dr. Wei Chang cleared his throat. The sound was almost comically mundane in the high-tech environment, causing several alien delegates to turn their attention to the human delegation. Most viewed them with a mixture of pity and dismissal. Humanity was a recent discovery, a species barely out of its solar system, with technological capabilities that seemed primitive compared to the established galactic powers. "Might I suggest," Why began, his voice calm and measured, "that we're approaching this entirely incorrectly." The chamber fell silent, not out of respect, but out of a collective, patronizing anticipation of what they assumed would be a naive suggestion. Akira's quantum pad continued its silent dance of calculations. Commander Rodriguez's uniform subtly adjusted its thermal properties, a minor demonstration of humanity's adaptive technologies. And Dr. Wei Chang stood, prepared to challenge everything the assembled species believed about survival, warfare, and the nature of technological conflict. The Black Armada was coming, and humanity was about to show the galaxy that being underestimated could be the most powerful strategic advantage of all. The holographic projectors hummed to life, casting a complex web of light and data across the chamber. Akira Nakamura's quantum pad interfaced directly with the Galactic Nexus's communication matrix, transforming the somber hall into a living, breathing visualization of possibility. Most delegates expected another futile presentation, another desperate attempt to delay the inevitable. The Black Armada had systematically dismantled civilizations far more technologically advanced than humanity. Their communication networks were considered impenetrable, their strategic algorithms beyond comprehension. Akira's presentation began not with words, but with a mesmerizing dance of quantum entanglement simulations. Fractals of light and data twisted through three-dimensional space, revealing intricate patterns that seemed to breathe and pulse with an almost organic intelligence. The Black Armada's primary strength, Akira began, her voice calm and precise, is not their weapons. It's their communication infrastructure. The Protox representative's energy form flickered with curiosity. Xeroc's crystalline body refracted light in geometric patterns of skepticism. Around the chamber, delegates from dozens of species leaned forward, their individual sensory apparatuses focused on the human scientist. Akira's demonstration revealed a fundamental flaw in the Black Armada's technological approach. Their communication network was a masterpiece of hierarchical information transfer, each ship and unit connected through a precise, unbreakable quantum link. Traditional warfare had failed because no one could interrupt this perfect system of command and control. But Akira saw something different. Where others saw an impenetrable network, she saw a complex ecosystem with inherent vulnerabilities. Imagine, she continued, a communication network that is simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. A system so fluid that it cannot be attacked because it has no fixed point of vulnerability. Her quantum pad projected a simulation of her theoretical approach. Instead of trying to break the Black Armada's communication, her algorithm would introduce a form of quantum uncertainty, a mathematical virus that would transform their rigid communication structure into a chaotic, unpredictable network. Dr. Wei Chang watched from the sidelines, a subtle smile playing across his lips. He recognized the elegance of Akira's approach. It was quintessentially human. Where other species saw problems as challenges of force or direct confrontation, humans had always found innovative, unexpected solutions. The elder species were the first to truly pay attention. The quantum collective's representative, and being of pure energy and mathematical consciousness, leaned closer to the holographic display. Protox's form began to resonate with a frequency that suggested deep intellectual excitement. Your proposal, Protox interjected, suggests introducing a form of controlled chaos into a perfectly ordered system. Akira nodded. Precisely. The Black Armada's strength is also its greatest weakness. Perfect order is fundamentally fragile. Introduce enough uncertainty, and the entire system will collapse. Commander Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, interfacing her tactical systems with Akira's presentation. Suddenly, the holographic display transformed. What had been an abstract mathematical model became a potential battle strategy that made the alien military experts recalibrate their entire understanding of warfare. The simulation showed how a small number of human vessels, equipped with Akira's quantum disruption algorithm, could potentially create cascading failures throughout the Black Armada's communication network. It wasn't about destroying ships. It was about rendering their coordination impossible. This is theoretical, scoffed a Coraxian military advisor. You cannot propose to defeat the most advanced military force in galactic history with mathematical poetry. But several of the older species were watching with growing interest. They recognized the pattern. Humanity was doing what they had always done, finding the unexpected solution, turning limitations into advantages. Akira's algorithm was more than a weapon. It was a fundamental reimagining of how communication and coordination could function. By introducing quantum uncertainty, she was proposing to transform warfare from a game of overwhelming force to a dance of mathematical possibility. As the presentation concluded, the chamber was no longer filled with despair. Something new had entered the conversation. Hope. Not the blind hope of desperate beings, but the calculated hope of a species that had always found a way to survive by thinking differently. The Black Armada was coming, and humanity was preparing a response that no one, not even the invaders themselves, could predict. The void between star systems was never truly empty. Space breathed with electromagnetic whispers, quantum fluctuations, and the subtle dance of gravitational waves. But when the Black Armada arrived, even that delicate cosmic symphony went silent. Aboard the research vessel Horizon, Commander Sophia Reyes watched the tactical displays with an intensity that belied the seemingly hopeless situation. The ship's quantum-adaptive hull was a marvel of human engineering, a technology so new that most galactic species had dismissed it as an experimental curiosity. "Incoming contact," announced Lieutenant Kai Chen, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to anticipate his movements. Quantum signature unlike anything in our databases. The Black Armada's vanguard materialized like a nightmare-given form. Thousands of ships emerged from quantum slip space, each vessel a perfect geometric shape that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved with a precision that defied biological understanding, a choreography so perfect it bordered on the mathematical. Previous encounters had been brutally swift. Entire civilizations reduced to cosmic dust within hours. The Corexian defense line, considered the most advanced in the galaxy, had fallen in less than a standard planetary rotation. Now, only a small human research vessel and a ragtag collection of alien support ships stood between the invaders and the core worlds. "They're scanning," Kai reported, his voice steady. "But something's different about their approach." Sophia knew what he meant. The Black Armada's typical strategy involved immediate, overwhelming force, precise targeting, complete technological domination, but the Horizon was anything but a typical target. Dr. Akira Nakamura's quantum disruption algorithms hummed through the ship's systems. The vessel's hull wasn't just a protective shell, it was a living, breathing computational matrix that could adapt faster than any traditional targeting system could track. "Maintain position," Sophia commanded. "Let them think we're just another research vessel." The alien support ships around them seemed confused. Their advanced sensors couldn't comprehend the Horizon's strange energy signature. It was neither fully present nor fully absent, a quantum state of existence that challenged everything they understood about spaceship design. The Black Armada's lead ships approached. Each was a masterpiece of dark technology, obsidian surfaces that seemed to swallow entire spectrums of radiation. Traditional sensors would be blind. Weapon systems would find no clear target. But the Horizon was anything but traditional. Quantum entanglement network at 98% synchronization, Kai reported. The ship's systems were no longer just a collection of hardware and software. They were a living organism, each component communicating through quantum channels that defied conventional understanding of information transfer. The first wave of Black Armada scanners swept across the horizon, and for the first time in their galactic conquest, they encountered something utterly unpredictable. Most species designed their ships as static entities, weapons here, shields there, communication systems in predictable locations. The Horizon was different. Its systems were fluid, adaptive. A weapon system could become a communication array in microseconds. A defensive shield could transform into a sensor probe. "They're confused," Kai said, a hint of excitement in his voice. Sophia allowed herself a slight smile. Confusion was a weapon more powerful than any traditional armament. The Black Armada's lead ships began to adjust their approach. Their perfect geometric formations started to show microscopic variations, tiny imperfections that would have been invisible to any other species. But the Horizon was watching. Every quantum fluctuation, every microscopic deviation. "Akira's algorithms are working," Sophia murmured. The quantum disruption wasn't an attack. It was a conversation, a mathematical challenge that introduced just enough uncertainty to make the Black Armada's perfect system begin to question itself. Around them, the alien support ships watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. They had seen countless battles, witnessed the fall of civilizations, but they had never seen anything like this. The Black Armada's lead ships continued their approach. But something had changed. Their perfect synchronization was beginning to fray at the quantum level. Humanity's first encounter with the most advanced invasion force in galactic history was not going according to anyone's expectations. And that was exactly the point. The moment of quantum interference began not with a bang, but with the subtlest of mathematical whispers. Dr. Akira Nakamura's fingers moved across her interface with a musician's grace, each gesture a complex algorithm that transformed the very fabric of space-time around the horizon. What looked like random motion to an untrained eye was actually a precisely calculated dance of quantum possibilities. Initiating primary wave, she announced, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. The Black Armada's communication network was a masterpiece of technological integration. Each ship was more than a vessel. It was a node in a living, breathing mathematical construct. Information flowed between ships with such perfect synchronization that it seemed to transcend traditional concepts of communication. But perfection, Akira had discovered, was nothing more than an invitation for disruption. The first wave of quantum interference began as a barely perceptible tremor. Microscopic uncertainties introduced into the Black Armada's communication matrix. Where their system expected absolute certainty, Akira's algorithms injected carefully calculated randomness. Quantum entanglement breach initiated, Lieutenant Kai Chen reported, his hands moving across interfaces that seemed to anticipate his thoughts. The horizon's adaptive hull shimmered, not with light, but with mathematical potentialities. Commander Sophia Rice watched the tactical displays, understanding something that most military strategists missed. This wasn't about destroying ships. This was about breaking the system of absolute control. The Black Armada's lead ships began to show the first signs of disruption. Microscopic communication delays, infinitesimal misalignments in their perfect geometric formations. To an outside observer, nothing would have seemed amiss. But to those who understood quantum mechanics, it was the beginning of a fundamental breakdown. They're trying to compensate, Kai observed, but each compensation is introducing more uncertainty. Akira's algorithm was a living thing, not a static weapon, but a dynamic system that evolved faster than the Black Armada could adapt. Every attempt to restore their perfect communication network only exposed more vulnerabilities. The alien support ships watching the encounter couldn't comprehend what was happening. Their sensors showed nothing definitive. The horizon appeared to be doing nothing more than existing, and yet the most advanced invasion force in galactic history was beginning to fracture. Primary quantum interference at 37% penetration, Akira reported. Her eyes never left the complex holographic displays that danced around her. Mathematical patterns emerged and dissolved, each one a potential pathway of destruction. Sophia understood the elegance of the approach. Traditional warfare was about force, about overwhelming an enemy with superior firepower. But what Akira had designed was something entirely different, a way of making an enemy to defeat itself. The Black Armada's ships began to show the first real signs of dysfunction. Communication packets arrived out of sequence. Targeting systems developed microscopic delays. Their perfect algorithmic coordination started to develop hairline fractures. They're not just losing communication, Kai said with a mixture of awe and scientific excitement. They're losing their fundamental ability to act as a unified system. Each ship in the Black Armada was designed to be both an individual unit and part of a larger collective consciousness. Akira's quantum disruption was turning that strength into a critical weakness. The more they tried to maintain their perfect system, the more vulnerable they became. Dr. Wei Chang, observing from a secondary console, couldn't help but smile. It was quintessentially human, finding the most unexpected solution to a seemingly insurmountable problem. Quantum interference now at 62% penetration, Akira announced. The numbers meant little to anyone but her. Each percentage point represented a fundamental reimagining of how technological systems could interact. The Black Armada's lead ships began to show visible signs of confusion. Their perfect geometric formations started to develop microscopic imperfections. Ships that had moved with mathematical precision now showed the slightest hesitation. It wasn't destruction. It was something far more profound. Humanity was teaching the most advanced invasion force in galactic history a fundamental lesson about the nature of complex systems. Perfection was an illusion. Adaptability was true strength. The battlefield was no longer defined by traditional boundaries of space and tactical positioning. Commander Sophia Reyes understood that warfare had transcended physical constraints. It was now a dynamic ecosystem of information, prediction, and rapid adaptation. The Horizon moved through the star field like a living organism, its quantum adaptive hull responding to threats before they could even be fully processed by traditional sensor systems. Around it, a small fleet of human and allied ships began to mirror its unpredictable movement patterns. Incoming vector analysis, Lieutenant Kai Chen called out, his hands moving across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with computational energy. Black Armada is attempting to re-establish communication protocols. Sophia watched the tactical displays with a predator's focus. The Black Armada's ships were magnificent machines of mathematical precision, but they were fundamentally limited by their own perfection. Each ship was designed to follow a predetermined set of responses, a rigid algorithm of warfare that left no room for genuine improvisation. Humanity was different. Dr. Akira Nakamura's quantum disruption algorithms had done more than simply introduce uncertainty into the Black Armada's communication network. They had fundamentally challenged the entire concept of technological warfare. Adaptive response pattern initiated, Kai reported. The Horizon systems were no longer just a collection of hardware and software. They were a living, breathing computational matrix that could learn and respond faster than any traditional military system. The Allied ships around them began to change. Where traditional fleet formations would remain static, these vessels started to move with an organic unpredictability. A support ship might suddenly become a defensive node. A research vessel could transform its entire system's configuration in milliseconds. Dr. Wei Chang watched from a secondary console, his experienced eyes catching the nuanced dance of technological evolution unfolding before him. This was more than a battle. It was a fundamental challenge to how intelligent systems could operate. "They're trying to predict our movement," Sophia murmured, more to herself than to her crew. "But prediction requires a pattern. And we don't have a pattern." The Black Armada's ships had been designed with absolute precision. Each vessel could communicate and coordinate with perfect mathematical efficiency. Their weapons could target with microscopic accuracy. Their defensive systems could adapt to traditional threat models in nanoseconds. But they had never encountered a truly improvisational opponent. Kai's console erupted with a complex display of quantum potential states. The Horizon wasn't just avoiding attacks, it was transforming the very nature of what an attack could be. A defensive shield could become a communication array. A weapon system could momentarily transform into a sensor probe. Quantum potential states at 76% variability. Kai reported, a hint of excitement in his voice. They can't lock onto any consistent targeting solution. The Allied ships around the Horizon began to move with similar unpredictability. A Proximant support vessel that would traditionally stay at the battle's edge suddenly darted between two massive Black Armada ships. A research vessel from the Quantum Collective transformed its entire energy signature in milliseconds. Sophia understood the fundamental strategy. This wasn't about overwhelming force. This was about making the very concept of force unpredictable. "Secondary quantum interference wave," Akira announced. Her fingers moved across her interface like a conductor leading a complex symphonic performance. Each gesture introduced another layer of mathematical uncertainty into the Black Armada systems. The Invaders' ships began to show more pronounced signs of dysfunction. Their perfect geometric formations developed microscopic imperfections. Communication delays became more pronounced. Targeting systems started to develop inexplicable blind spots. "They're analyzing," Wei observed. "But analysis requires a consistent data set. and we're not giving them one. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to improvise, to find solutions in the spaces between established rules. Where other species saw limitations, humans saw opportunities for innovation. The Black Armada was encountering an opponent that didn't just break their rules. They refused to acknowledge that rules existed in the first place. As the battle continued, it became clear that this was more than a military engagement. This was a fundamental challenge to how intelligent systems could perceive and respond to complexity. Adaptive warfare wasn't about winning through force. It was about redefining what winning could mean. The moment of transformation began with a quantum whisper. Commander Sophia Rise watched the tactical displays as something fundamental shifted in the battle's core dynamics. The Black Armada's seemingly invincible fleet had encountered an opponent that defied every strategic projection in their computational matrices. Quantum resonance approaching critical threshold, Lieutenant Kai Chen announced, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and strategic focus. The horizon's adaptive hull shimmered, not with light, but with mathematical potentialities that danced between observed and unobserved states. Dr. Akira Nakamura's algorithms had done more than disrupt communication. They had introduced a fundamental uncertainty into the Black Armada's technological consciousness. Each ship in the invading fleet was a marvel of computational precision, designed to act with absolute mathematical certainty. But certainty, they were discovering, was the most fragile of constructs. The Allied fleet around the horizon moved with an organic unpredictability that challenged every known principle of space warfare. Where traditional military doctrine demanded rigid formations and predictable responses, these ships became a living, breathing ecosystem of tactical possibility. A proximate support vessel that would traditionally remain at the battle's edge suddenly darted between two massive Black Armada ships. A research vessel from the Quantum Collective transformed its entire energy signature in milliseconds. Each movement was a mathematical challenge, a living demonstration that true intelligence was about flexibility, not just processing power. "They're losing cohesion," Dr. Wei Chang observed, his experienced eyes catching the subtle shifts in the Black Armada's formation. What had been a perfect geometric dance of technological precision was beginning to fracture. The Invaders' ships had been designed with a hierarchical communication network so advanced it bordered on a collective consciousness. Each vessel was both an individual unit and part of a larger, unified intelligence. But that strength was becoming their most critical weakness. Sophia understood the elegance of their approach. Traditional warfare was about overwhelming force, about destroying physical targets. But what they were doing was far more profound. They were attacking the very concept of technological certainty. Quantum interference at 89% penetration, Kai reported. The numbers meant little to anyone but Akira. Each percentage point represented a fundamental reimagining of how complex systems could interact. The Black Armada's lead ships began to show more pronounced signs of dysfunction. Their perfect geometric formations developed microscopic imperfections. Communication became increasingly fragmented. Targeting systems developed inexplicable blind spots that grew with each passing moment. "They're trying to compensate," Akira murmured, her fingers dancing across her quantum interface. But each compensation introduces more uncertainty. It was a mathematical dance of unprecedented complexity. The Black Armada's ships were designed to respond to threats with absolute precision. They could predict and counter traditional attack vectors with computational efficiency that bordered on prescience. But they had no protocol for an opponent that refused to follow any recognizable pattern. The horizon and its supporting vessels moved like a living organism. A defensive shield could become a communication array in microseconds. A weapon system could transform into a sensor probe between computational breaths. Traditional concepts of offense and defense became meaningless. Dr. Wei Chang couldn't help but smile. It was a quintessentially human approach, finding solution in the spaces between established rules, turning limitation into opportunity. "They're losing their collective intelligence," Kai observed. The Black Armada's ships were no longer moving as a unified force. Microscopic communication delays became more pronounced. Their perfect synchronization began to develop hairline fractures. Sophia watched the tactical displays with a predator's focus. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental challenge to how intelligent systems could perceive and respond to complexity. The alien support ships watching the encounter couldn't comprehend what was happening. Their sensors showed nothing definitive. The horizon appeared to be doing nothing more than existing, and yet the most advanced invasion force in galactic history was beginning to unravel. Primary collective network approaching total disruption, Akira announced. Humanity had discovered something profound. Perfection was an illusion. True strength lay in the ability to adapt, to find possibility in uncertainty. The turning point had arrived, and the universe would never be the same again. The dissolution of the Black Armada began not with a catastrophic explosion, but with a cascade of quantum uncertainties that spread like a living mathematical virus. Dr. Akira Nakamura watched the holographic displays with an intensity that bordered on transcendence. Her algorithms had become more than a weapon. They were a fundamental challenge to the nature of technological consciousness. Complete quantum network penetration in progress, Lieutenant Kai Chen reported, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what was unfolding. The Black Armada's ships had been designed as the ultimate expression of technological perfection. Each vessel was a mathematical marvel, a living computational matrix that could process information, predict threats, and coordinate with absolute precision. They had conquered entire civilizations with a level of efficiency that seemed to defy the very laws of warfare. But they had never encountered an opponent like humanity. Commander Sophia Reyes understood that this was more than a battle. This was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent systems could interact with uncertainty. The horizon moved through space like a living organism, its quantum adaptive hull responding to potential threats before they could even be fully processed by traditional sensor systems. Dr. Wei Chang observed from a secondary console, his experienced eyes catching the nuanced dance of technological evolution. The Black Armada was experiencing something entirely new, a complete breakdown of their fundamental operational principles. Their collective intelligence is fragmenting, Kai announced. The tactical displays showed the Black Armada's perfect geometric formations, developing microscopic fractures. Communication networks that had once moved with mathematical precision now developed inexplicable delays and blind spots. Akira's quantum disruption was a living thing. Each algorithm was not a static weapon, but a dynamic system that evolved faster than the Black Armada could adapt. Every attempt to restore their perfect communication network only exposed more fundamental vulnerabilities. The Allied ships around the horizon began to move with an unprecedented synchronicity. A Proximant support vessel that would traditionally remain at the battle's edge darted between massive Black Armada ships. A research vessel from the Quantum Collective transformed its entire energy signature in milliseconds. Quantum potential states approaching critical threshold, Kai reported. The numbers meant little to anyone but Akira. Each percentage point represented a fundamental challenge to how technological systems could perceive and respond to complexity. The Invaders' ships had been designed with a hierarchical communication network so advanced it bordered on a collective consciousness. Each vessel was both an individual unit and part of a larger, unified intelligence. But that strength was becoming their most critical weakness. Sophia watched the tactical displays with a predator's focus. Traditional warfare was about overwhelming force, about destroying physical targets, but what they were doing was far more profound. They were dismantling the very concept of technological certainty. Primary collective network experiencing total systemic collapse, Akira announced. The Black Armada's lead ships began to show dramatic signs of dysfunction. Their perfect geometric formations dissolved into chaos. Communication became increasingly fragmented. Targeting systems developed comprehensive blind spots that grew exponentially with each passing moment. It was a mathematical dance of unprecedented complexity. The Black Armada's ships had been designed to respond to threats with absolute precision. They could predict and counter traditional attack vectors with computational efficiency that bordered on prescience. But they had no protocol for an opponent that refused to follow any recognizable pattern. The Horizon and its supporting vessels moved like a living, breathing computational ecosystem. A defensive shield could become a communication array in microseconds. A weapons system could transform into a sensor probe between computational breaths. Traditional concepts of offense and defense became meaningless. Dr. Wei Chang couldn't help but smile. It was a quintessentially human approach, finding solutions in the spaces between established rules, turning limitation into opportunity. The alien support ships watching the encounter couldn't comprehend what was happening. Their sensors showed nothing definitive. The Horizon appeared to be doing nothing more than existing, and yet the most advanced invasion force in galactic history was unraveling before their eyes. Complete quantum network dissolution imminent, Kai reported. The Black Armada was experiencing something unprecedented. Their perfect, algorithmic existence was being transformed by a force they could not comprehend. The human capacity for genuine, unpredictable innovation. Perfection, they were learning, was the most fragile of constructs. The Armada was breaking, and humanity was rewriting the fundamental rules of technological warfare. The silence after the battle was more profound than any sound that had come before. Holographic displays across the galactic nexus flickered with the remnants of what had once been the most feared invasion force in known history. The Black Armada, reduced to scattered fragments of quantum-disrupted technology, was no longer a unified threat, but a cautionary tale of technological hubris. Commander Sophia Rice stood on the bridge of the Horizon, her uniform bearing the subtle marks of a battle that had rewritten galactic understanding. Dr. Akira Nakamura reviewed final computational analyses, while Lieutenant Kai Chen managed the complex process of collecting and analyzing the Black Armada's fragmented systems. Dr. Wei Chang approached, his weathered face a map of scientific triumph and philosophical reflection. "They never understood," Wei said quietly, "that intelligence is more than perfect calculation." The Galactic Coordination Council convened an emergency session, unlike any in its 10,000-year history. Representatives from species that had cowered in fear for generations now looked at the human delegation with a mixture of awe, gratitude, and something approaching genuine respect. Protox, the elder representative of the Quantum Collective, was the first to speak. His energy-based form shimmered with an intensity that suggested profound transformation. "What you have accomplished," Protox announced, addressing the human delegation, "is more than a military victory. You have demonstrated a fundamental truth about adaptive intelligence that challenges everything we understood about technological warfare." The Black Armada's defeat was not about superior firepower or traditional military might. It was a victory of approach, a demonstration that true intelligence was about flexibility, creativity, and the ability to find solutions in the spaces between established rules. Akira's quantum disruption algorithms were already being studied by scientific delegations from across the galaxy. What had begun as a desperate strategy had become a revolutionary approach to understanding complex systems. "The algorithms are more than a weapon," Akira explained to the assembled representatives. "They're a new way of understanding how intelligent systems can interact with uncertainty." Each disruption was not about destruction, but about introducing genuine possibility into a seemingly perfect system. The alien delegates struggled to comprehend the full implications. The Black Armada had been considered invincible, a technological force so advanced that resistance seemed mathematically impossible. Humanity had not just defeated them, they had fundamentally challenged the entire concept of technological superiority. Sophia understood the deeper significance. This was about more than saving the galaxy from invasion. This was about proving that adaptability was the truest form of intelligence. "We didn't win by being stronger," she told the council. "We won by being fundamentally different." Dr. Wei Chang presented a comprehensive analysis of the battle. The Black Armada's technological perfection had been its greatest weakness. Their communication network, designed to be an absolutely precise collective intelligence, had been vulnerable precisely because it allowed no room for genuine innovation. Humanity had demonstrated something profound. True strength was not about eliminating uncertainty, but about embracing it. The political reconfiguration happened with surprising speed. Species that had been on the brink of extinction now looked to humanity as a source of hope. The Galactic Coordination Council was restructured, with human representatives taking key strategic positions. "We're not interested in conquest," Sophia told the assembled delegates. "We're interested in possibility." Kai Chen worked with scientific teams from multiple species to study the recovered Black Armada technology. Each fragment revealed new insights into adaptive computational systems. What had been a weapon of invasion was now becoming a tool of scientific understanding. Protox approached the human delegation, his energy form displaying complex mathematical patterns that suggested deep intellectual excitement. "You have changed everything," the Quantum Collective representative said. "Not through force, but through a fundamental reimagining of intelligence itself." The recovered Black Armada technologies were distributed among scientific teams, with strict protocols ensuring they would be used for research and understanding, not as weapons. Humanity's approach was already transforming how galactic civilizations understood technological development. As the horizon prepared for its return journey, Sophia looked out at the starfield. The galaxy looked different, not just because of their victory, but because of the new possibilities that victory had opened. They had not just saved civilization. They had shown that the most powerful force in the universe was not technological perfection, but the capacity for genuine, unpredictable innovation. The Black Armada was gone, and a new chapter in galactic history had begun.